screaming, and I love the hollering and screaming of kids, don't get that wrong. But when you put 241 plus homes into such a small area, to say that audio or an audible effect is not there would be, improper to say that, because there is going to be sound effects from it. As a city, and as anybody invested in this, has anybody done any environmental impact studies to see what it's gonna do to Busby Branch or any of the other parts of that property? As with anything else, I know this all boils down to the almighty dollar and really has a minor effect on anybody else's thought that it's not being impacted by this, as far as what it's gonna do for them, or what it's gonna do to them. Mark stated that it would impact on property values. I know that Tim and some of the other ones are talking about that the comps will eventually make our property values higher. I tend to decline to accept that, because you take my home and my property of 32 acres and say that it's going to be positively impacted by 241 homes. I can't see it. There's no way that you can impress on me that would have that effect when you're talking 1,500 or 1,800 square foot to 3,000 square foot homes, that's going to make a good impact on my property or anyone else that joins it. I understand, it's hard to debate facts when it comes to the traffic study. The average home has 2.37 vehicles. That's a national average. I would think that would be very close. So to say that 480 to 500 vehicles added to our area is not going to have some kind of impact. Even Broadwest States put in a turn lane, and there's nowhere near that many number of homes in Broadwest States. The impact at Highway 75 especially, the state is going to have to look at doing something there along with the city if this passes, because you get 3 cars go through that red light at a time if you're coming off South Broad on 275. So there are going to be impacts that we haven't seen yet. Numbers are numbers. Statistics are statistics. They're hard to argue, in fact, until it happens. So I think that there are still a lot of things to be considered here. I know that it passed through the board they got approval, so now it's up to y'all to make that decision. So my main concern thought is, I hope that you all have prayed about this and thought about it as your property, because I know that some live on that side of town, but none of y'all join it. And so please consider those facts. This is nothing personal towards Tim. He's a businessman. I'm a businessman. I know that we all have to eat and all have to make our living for our families, but this is just something that is impacting a large portion of our city and a large number of business owners, people in the community that impact this community positively. So please consider. Well, I will speak to that real quick. And I mentioned this to Tim as well. Our city has not asked other developments to support our city. Some of the other developments in this area, especially the smaller homes over on Saltine and stuff like that, and the majority of the home builders that will be involved with this, they do not support our local economy. All of their supplies are trucked in here on 18-wheelers. They're bought out of state, some even out of Canada. So I think that as a council, we need to take consideration, whether it be on this consideration or others, that we ask these people to support our local economy. They say that things are going to be better by building homes, and while some of that can and can't be debated, they're not supporting our local economy. Johnson's Lumber Company, any of the other suppliers here in town, nobody is receiving anything out of this. They don't buy their lumber. They don't buy their shingles, they don't buy their windows locally. All of that is brought in here, which also has an adverse effect on our economy, because building is great if it supports this area. These don't. And Tim has even spoken to that is factual. So even if it is a requirement, a suggestion, advice from our city, we need some kind of positive impact. Whether it be, like I say, whether it be this development, whether it be the next development, even people on our council, different boards, I apologize, different boards that are doing the same things in our city. We need something to hold these people accountable to supporting the place that they're wanting to impact, good or bad. Thank you.
like to speak opposed?
I would bet. I don't have anything written down, so I wasn't prepared. My name is Shane Nash, and I'm just gonna speak from the heart. I live over in the area. I can remember as a teenager riding over in that area, doing what teenage kids always done, and I always thought I would love to be able to afford to live over in this area. And fortunately, with the grace of God, the Lord let Tammy and I build a house there, and we've been there for 25 years. We love it. There's no place in this town I would rather live. That is my home, my area. Most people know that, y'all know me personally. I've took care of a lot of people in this city. I'm a capitalist, and I have a construction company. Or I have a contracting business also. I get it, we gotta grow. I just personally feel like that's not the place we need to grow. I've rode my motorcycle in that area for years. It's a pretty rough terrain, a lot of work had to be put into that. A couple of things they brought up at the beginning was like, imagine sewage, it's over 7,000 feet from there, that's over a mile that they're gonna have to pump sewage. I know MUB does a fantastic job for our city, but it looks like they're just like everybody else. Their infrastructure needs a little work, and you know, that's a big demand on there. Talking about the traffic study, I believe the gentleman said it was right around March with Snead State in session, because I'm telling you, there's a lots of kids back and forth through there going to Snead every day. So I'm just like Jason. I'm just a regular person that loves my community, loves my area. Y'all know how many thousands of calls I've rode up and down the roads. Things seem to start pretty well, and then it kind of dwindles down as the new kinds of wear off stuff. So I'm just like Jason. I'm asking y'all from the heart to really think about this and think about all of us that have built our lives just to have the American dream. But I appreciate y'all. I appreciate the decisions you'll have to make. But I don't think you're gonna find anybody over there that says, "Yeah, come on." You know, we're just your regular old American resident just trying to get through life. I appreciate y'all. And Jason said something about it also, is I can't find maybe one or two people in the area that ever got a letter from anybody when the original zoning, nobody knew about any of this. I mean, we all found out from the neighbors calling, you know, so.
They showed receipts at the zoning board, but none of the people that even had receipt that they showed receipts from received those letters, but maybe 2 or 3 people, especially the ones that are directly impacted that join that land. Did anybody in here that joins that land receive a letter?
I did.
You did? Yeah, you don't, I mean, you consider, you know, it's still considered separated.
Yeah, we just got it from the neighbors, everybody called. I mean,
The city takes it to the post office after that, with
It's-
out of our control.
and I understand that, but it's just kind of strange.
I get my bills every day, so I don't know.
Didn't have trouble moving up, and I'm not doubting that, I'm just saying it's kind of strange that many people.
I mean, we don't have anything to hide. All we're trying to do is follow the law, and that's what we did.
My name is Starling Cook. There's not really much else that I can say other than I live on Walnut Street, on the corner of Walnut, and the traffic is very bad already. So all this, I'm all for growth for the city. If it was, going to be like 100 homes, or like our house sits on an acre lot, that would be great. We're all for it, but I think 241 homes is overkill for this area, for our area. Most of the homes in our area are on acre lots or somewhat that size. We all maintain our properties very well. I don't know, this is just not a good idea. for our side of town at all. I can't find any positive thing to say about it. Anyone that you talk to, I think everyone in this room, other than the builders and the traffic study guy, and people like that are the only people that are for this. That's all, that's all I can say. And I've spoken with Tracy, I didn't call anyone else because everybody said there's no need to come to the meeting, there's no need to come to that first meeting. The first meeting we came to, the whole room was full. It isn't full today because people don't think there was any reason to come here because they said y'all had already made up your mind. Maybe you have, but I just wanted all y'all to know how I feel about it, how all of our neighbors feel about it, and maybe y'all will take into consideration how we really feel. And we just don't think that this large of field is the right thing for that property. Thank you for allowing me to speak. What does that say, Tom? I didn't bring my glasses up here.
Street address.
Thanks, Tom. You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak opposed? All right, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor?
Well, this is not a favor, I'm in the neutral category, I'm not opposed or for Mike Price, Economic Development Director. So what I would put what this is, just information purposes only. And it's just a, you know, some people have said there's not statistics back or statistics. This is literally the statistics on the growth rate in our area. And this is based on the latest U.S. Census Bureau estimates since 2025. The city of Albertville, the Albertville micropolitan as they call it, is the fastest growing micropolitan in the state of Alabama. So you say, what's a micropolitan? Well, a micropolitan, and I'm gonna read a bunch of this because this is a lot of definitions and numbers, and I wanna make sure they're right. Micropolitan statistical area is a geographic region defined by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget for statistical purposes. It centers on an urban cluster with a population of 10,000 to 49,999 residents. That area includes the central county containing the core city. Why is Albertville considered the core city of the micropolitan? It's the largest city in the statistical region. It's the economic hub of the region. It has the largest industrial base of the region. In addition to this area, just for reference, state and federal government also bundles the Albertville micropolitan area in a larger economic zone, which is the Huntsville, Decatur, Albertville combined statistical area. Y'all say that out loud. This grouping reflects the high number of Marshall County residents who commute daily into the Huntsville Tech Hub and Decatur's industrial sector. So the top 5 state of Alabama micropolitan areas ranked in order are: Albertville is the fastest growing, Coleman, Enterprise, Scottsboro, and number 5 is Fort Payne. So why is Albertville number 1? Manufacturing expansion makes up a lot of that. Continued residential development makes up a lot of that. And population growth that has outpaced other micro areas. If you look at the Albertville micropolitan area through the eyes of the Southeast United States, Albertville micro area ranks 10th in the Southeast and is the only Alabama region to make the top 10. So what does all that mean in reality? The 5-year population growth trend from 2020 to 2025 was roughly a 7% cumulative growth across the region, which also includes the county. But if you boil it down just to the city of Albertville specifically, the city of Albertville specifically has an average annual growth rate over the last 5 years of 1.17%, which is roughly 264 new residents annually. The next 5-year projections match that growth rate. And so in real base terms, based on the 25 census population of 23,710, the projected 2030 population would grow to 25,130, or a positive growth of 1,420 residents, which is roughly 284 annually.
Anyone else to speak in favor?
Good morning, council and guests and staff. My name is Steve Self. My wife Beth and I live at 1105 South Broad Street. We've been here for 4 years. First, I'd like to say thank you for your ongoing and forward-focused leadership of this growing population. While simultaneously, I think you've done a good job of fostering a strong community pride. That's not lost on me. Because of this forward-focused and growth-respecting management, we very intentionally selected Albertville to come back home to Alabama after almost 20 years in Colorado Springs, Colorado, a city that's had growth problems that you can't even begin to describe here. Albertville's population is virtually the same as our hometown, Homeland, Alabama, which is a suburb of Birmingham. While both of us are sixth-generation Alabamians, we have had the pleasure of living around the entire U.S. Mid-markets, small markets, large markets. But Albertville is our home, and it's our chosen home. Just like many of you. We didn't grow up here, but we got here as soon as we could. And we very intentionally didn't go back to Jefferson County when we came to Alabama, came back home. Additionally, just for background, my 35-year career as a corporate banker was centered on large projects and infrastructure finance, which included developments similar to this, as well as builder financing. Also, Beth and I had the privilege of being one of the first families to build a 7,400 square foot house on the state lot in a PUD development almost 22 years ago. And that development actually included live-works space. Businesses on the lower level, residences on the top. Done by a different type of developer. It was done by U.S. Steel Realty, but nonetheless, it was done in a very seasoned, mature area. It was an infill property like this, and it was done very well. I think I'd just say to Tim here, if I could call you by first name, there's just cautionary statement in that when you're doing infill. I think you know that. With this backdrop, Beth and I support this development. And I say we support our exploration of this proposed development because I do think it represents a significant next step for us as a community. Most importantly, I think it represents a next step for our housing population growth, which we just heard about, and which is one reason we came here. But more importantly, also our demographic widening. I've heard all kinds of concerns about demographics over the years in Albertville, having grown up in Alabama. I see this type of development as an opportunity for us to continue to widen our demographics. Young professionals have a challenge to find a house here. I've got a 34-year-old daughter and son-in-law with a grandchild. They have a hard time finding what they want here. So I think we have to keep in mind the broader audience, as in addition to keeping ourselves in mind. Also, I think this development could possibly represent that next phase for us in our ongoing growth. That's for you to decide, for the zoning committee to decide. Now, as Paul Harvey said, the rest of the story. I think strategic growth should be cautiously entered, and I think it needs to be very strategically managed. We've already heard value diminished, quality homes, traffic management, change impact. There's a lot there to manage. Approving this plan and Tim's company as a developer is just the first step. Having financed these type of projects over years, there are so many steps, I don't have enough time to list those. So with that, I've got some questions. What is Tim's experience with such a project? Have you all been properties like the one on Solitude? Or has he had experience with these types of properties? Because they are very unique properties. Has he completed similar, projects in scope? The other thing to differentiate here, there's a developer, which we have with us. We don't have any of the builders with us. Do we know who the builders are? Do you have to approve them? Does zoning have to approve them? Are they all national builders? That comes with a lot of challenges. I personally prefer custom and local builders, but there's also a nice reason to have a blend. National builders, we just need to understand what that means. What are your, and when I say your, I mean our expectations of them doing business with us? We've already heard that. They need to do business in our community. They need to be good citizens of our resources. Interestingly enough, this is, I don't think it's happened in this part of Alabama, but I've seen it nationally. Will these lots be sold to individuals, or are there blocks of investors that will follow these national builders to possibly buy these houses? That's something that we need to consider, because I think everyone in this room is for individual home ownership, not necessarily. We've got a dearth of rental properties now. I've seen developments that have had corporate investors follow the developers and the builders. That's a different animal. We need to understand, you need to understand, is that possible with this type of property? How will construction traffic be managed for likely multiple year period? That's been spoken to ad nauseum. As a unique and emerging real estate product for our community, how does this development cause our existing staff to manage? Sufficient training? Do we have the right staff? Do we have enough staff? I know Mike works on that very diligently. Are they really ready for the bandwidth and the capacity challenges this will provide? Because again, my first point was, this is but the first step. We should inspect what we expect throughout the duration of this project until it's finished. Whether it's finished with Tim or another developer, and I've witnessed that multiple times. And I'm almost through within my 3 minutes, I think. What is the impact, and this is the most important, what is the impact to our existing residents and neighbors of this property? And I consider myself one, because I live on South Broad. While not next door, I'm very interested in what happens on our end of town, because there's a lot happening out there. What are the actual steps and impact of handling this wastewater lift station? I'm aware of lift stations. I've lived in a facility with one. I financed them. That comes with a lot of strings that we need to understand. We need to understand the impact of construction, getting the solid waste from where it currently would be proposed to where it would connect into them up. We also need to understand what the potential cost impact to the rest of us are. We're all ratepayers in this community. I know MUB does a really great job. We need to make sure we fully contemplate, is there impact to us as ongoing ratepayers? You see the same conversation going on with data centers right now. While this is a unique and separate development, there are likely impacts to us. We just need to make sure we understand them, and we'd like to hear about them. We'd like to know what those are. We talked about traffic. I want to more specifically. Traffic is a given with this type of development, and the average is 2.3, 2.4 cars per household is very accurate in my experience. But I want us to remember, traffic is not just a count. I remember when the traffic rubber counters were installed. One of them was just down past my house. It's more than a count. Right now on South Broad, we have significant, and I say significant, that's a chosen word, with excessive speeds in excess of 60, 70, probably higher, passing on double lines, and we have a lack of slowing mechanisms on South Broad from Mount Vernon all the way to 75. That's intolerable and unacceptable if we're going to add this type of traffic. I have concerns with my grandchildren over there. I've seen, we don't have sidewalks. We have a lot of residents that walk. You as a leadership, we're gonna have a significant issue. So that's got to be addressed. And that's more than just count. It's actual management and how we slow people down. Specifics on the manner in which the developer builders will become next door neighbors. I hadn't heard a lot about that. I know there's intended landscape buffers. the neighbors that live next door to this need to understand that better. I would assume there's going to be ongoing engagement by Tim, some community discussions around this. If not, I would highly recommend that you do that. In closing, I would just say that Beth and I fully support this for our community's growth aspirations. But they're just aspirations right now. So long as all stakeholders, everybody in this room, plus everybody that lives on that corridor of town, whether they feel comfortable coming to a meeting or not, as long as they are recognized and heard. We wish you all the best with this ongoing discussion and deliberation, but I want you to hear me say, Beth and I know you have our best interest in mind and at heart for the city of Albertville. And we do pray for our elected leaders every single day. So I thank you for taking the time. I thank Tim for considering Albertville. I made a purposeful decision to be here, and you do not have an easy decision. And I came here today, I don't assume it's a done deal. If it is, shame on you. But I don't think it is. And I have enough faith in our system that we should be able to come speak against, for, and then you deliberate and make an appropriate decision. So, but anyway, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate my neighbors out of South Broad that have concerns about this, because they're legitimate concerns. Thank you.
I come with an informational perspective, similar to Mike. I'm not advocating for or against, simply wanted to give some perspective from the county's perspective. My name is Kevin Hawk. I'm the Marshall County Economic Development Council Executive Director. Recently appointed that role, and I'm really a lifetime resident of Marshall County. I live in Gunnersville, but I just wanted to kind of let you know what we're seeing countywide is the utilization of these developments. They are more dense than your typical classic subdivision that we had in Marshall County, but you've got it's kind of a good problem to have. You guys have done a good job of developing a town, and people have somewhere to live. So we primarily support industrial. So in talking with the industrial community throughout Marshall County, not just Albertville, the biggest issue we've got is workforce development and having somewhere for people to live. I also have some young children that are been out trying to find homes, and affordable housing in Marshall County is very difficult. So this is not going to be a unique conversation. This is probably the first time you're going to have this type of development proposed in this community. This is coming. There's a strong desire from the Huntsville market, the Madison County market, for businesses to come to this area. For that to happen, you got to have somewhere for those people to live. We already have a shortage of supply for the demand. So this is just something that's gonna be an issue going forward. I'm not saying that the density is a perfect solution, but it's something that needs to be considered, and will something you're going to continue seeing, not just here but throughout the county. This type of development has been utilized. I will tell you, Hartsville, Priceville, Coleman, Arab, they just completed one. They're doing another one. The response in the market has been strong. It's allowing young families to have a place to live that they can afford, that want to come back to Marshall County. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Can I respond to some of the things that were mentioned? Absolutely. I wasn't going to, but I do want to be able to come to Albertville and not have stuff thrown at me.